Welcome to the Soul Touched by Dogs podcast, the show for dog lovers who see dogs not as toys or tools, but wise souls worth our respect and care. I'm Anke Herman, and I'm your host. I talk to awesome humans, people who do great work for dogs and their people. So come and join us for today's conversation. Hello
You.
and welcome, Debbie. I'm
Thank
absolutely
you.
delighted to have you here. It was long overdue, and I'm glad we're here.
No, I'm so excited to be in any place where you are at,
Oh.
Anka. You are just a fabulous human being. So happy to be
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. But today the spotlight's on you. So let people know where in this lovely world you are and what's your business with dogs.
So I'm in West Hartford, Connecticut, in the States, and I am. My shirt says Certified Canine Life Coach. Um, in another life, I used to counsel humans.
Oh.
And I was going to become a human life coach. And when I was going through that and looking at my best options, I ended up going to a shelter to get a dog. And instead, I came home with him and his litter mate because I couldn't leave her behind. And these dogs had stuff, they were born to a malnourished stray mom, which you'll read in the future about more in my book. Um, but but whenever that is. But I brought them home and there were some big issues. I hired a trainer and I was appalled at what he suggested. And I just started reading everything. So instead of reading, book club books, I was getting this book about dogs and that book, and some of the books were horrible too. So it took me a little while to find my way to the good folks, the kind folks. And then instead of becoming a life coach for humans, I became a canine life coach. So that's my story, my short version. But I, it's just so interesting the things that you don't notice until you start to notice. And now I work um with dogs who are fearful. Lots of people call them aggressive dogs. And of course, we who know them know that they are just trying to give themselves space and really communicating the best that they can with what they've got to work with. And so I always tell people who reach out to me, yes, I'm happy to come, but my training is for you.
Hmm.
Your dog will have fun when I'm there, but you need to know that I'm going to share things with you that are going to be big eye openers and help you to see things in a really different way.
I love
And
that.
it,
Yeah. It's interesting, like how I have a similar experience. I didn't didn't go the same route, but I had that same experience that when I got my first dog, from the street, none of the stuff that was recommended to me made any sense.
right.
Either was cruel or was like kind of felt stupid or just simply didn't work.
So cruel
And
or so dumb. Yes.
yeah, yeah. So when people hear canine coach, because my first question was, so who are you coaching? Like the dog or the human? You know?
Right.
So I mean, I guess the human is the one who needs to understand stuff, right? So what's the one, like if I was to say, like, out of all the clients who come to you, what's the one thing, oh boy, I wish they understood this?
Well, yesterday I went to see a client who had used another trainer before. Um, had a big dog, over 100-pound dog, and this dog was wearing a prong collar. And I actually took a picture and did a post about it last night. I don't have it with me, but the prong collar, when you take it, and it has like a little martingale collar too, and you hold it up, it's literally like this much around, and the prongs are sticking in. So I put an Apple Watch inside just to give some depth perception, and you could see that it's just in the dog's neck. And, this dog was 5 years old. Sweet, sweet, wonderful dog. She said that also people couldn't come in the house, and she couldn't believe that him and I made friends so quickly. But of course, we know about dog body language, right? We know, oh, Sally, you okay? We know about good messages to send our dogs instead of the people who come in and want to show who's boss. That's never a good thing. And that's what they had been experiencing. So when we went through everything and she saw the way he responded to me, she started to cry. And she said, I feel so horrible that he's my baby and I've been doing this to him for 5 years. So I hugged her and I told her it's not your fault. You were given poor advice by someone who I'm guessing really knew nothing about dog behavior, you know. But for me, when I have cases like that, when I leave, I ask if they'll give me the prong collar or the shock collar. And, one person said to me, well, it's expensive. I should just donate it. And I said, but then you
Oh,
put another
dude.
dog through the same torture. And she said, oh my gosh, you're right. That's, so terrible. So yesterday she said, I'm so happy to give it to you. And she went and she got it. And I said, it makes me so happy to be able to take this. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I think, so is this my long answer to your question? I think the most important thing, was that what you asked? What's the most important thing, or what do I want people
Well,
to know?
what did you wish people knew,
I want people to know that kindness always wins, that there's
Mm,
never, ever, ever a good reason to do something to another creature that doesn't feel right to you. And if it's pain and it's intimidation, it shouldn't feel right to you, right?
yeah.
I mean, we've come so far, sometimes we think in this world. I don't know what's going on these days, but um, we used to do things like bear baiting. The zoos, many zoos are still horrible places, and we want the animals to have their freedom, but so many certified zoos have done deep dives into what's natural for the animals who live there. And we all who love dogs should be doing the same thing. You don't want a dog that's a slave. I said to do this, da, 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 and if not, you're going to pay the price. Who wants that? It's so upsetting. Um, when people call me and they say, I really want you to come and I want a strict heel. And I tell them, well, I don't do that. Then you take all the joy out of the walk for the dog. So I don't do that. But I'm happy to come and share other things with you, which I hope will help you not to want that strict heel
Mm.
anymore, you know?
That's interesting because what strikes me is so if you're specializing, you kind of deal with fearful, aggressive dogs, you probably get an above average number of people who've tried stuff like that,
Yes.
because if somebody has, say, I don't know, I've had people on the show who kind of specialize in, let's say, separation anxiety, right?
Sure.
So
Sure.
now they never talk about shock collars and stuff like that, because
Right.
there's only like the alternative is often to pop the dog in a crate and or leave them to cry it out and then deal with the
Breaks
scratched
their
door,
heart.
whatever,
Right.
so but they don't, but I think people who have a dog, who especially, and I have a 100-pound dog, and
Yes.
so it's like you kind of are careful to make sure a big dog like that doesn't go crazy, so because like
Right.
purely for the size, if she was to
Exactly.
come, my mom is like 5 foot tall, like so now, and she's 85 years
I'm
old. I mean,
5'1".
like she looks like 65, but if that big dog who weighs more than her, like, you kind of like make sense to make sure that she's a chilled dog. But so I can see how there would be a lot of advice. Well, but you have to control her you
Exactly.
know, so, but I've seen it with this one where, it was like, well, I would not let anybody, you know, yell at her or do stupid shit. And she's
Right,
the kindest,
right.
she's 2 years old now, 2.5. She is the
Oh,
kindest goofball you'll ever meet,
beautiful.
so it's
Because
like,
all she's received is
yeah,
love. So she
yeah,
trusts and she's,
yeah.
she's relaxed. This lady told me that the trainer said to her, this is, you need to use this
Yes.
for the welfare of your dog.
Yeah,
So I just found that so ironic that, you know, for the welfare of the dog, so what, to keep
wow.
the dog safe, to, but so the dog, for the welfare of the dog should live a life of pain with these horrible things pressing on the trachea and the thyroid gland and the esophagus, you know? Um, it's just so sad. And where I live, I do see a lot of people walking around with shock collars and prong collars. And literally I make eye contact with the dogs and I feel like they're saying, can you please help me? And it breaks my heart.
Mm,
Makes me crazy.
yeah, and I guess you would need openness from the owner to, because of that, if they're convinced that, like, like, I think it's this catch 22. It's this kind of vicious cycle. The more they throttle the dog, the more anxious, the more tense the dog will be, the more they think they need
Sure,
it, right? So it's
sure.
almost like you need somebody
Yes,
willing to say, well, hey, it doesn't matter how fast you run if you're running in the wrong direction. Let's just stop here and see whether.
turn it around. Um, I testify in court sometimes for dogs who have been um, abused with this kind of thing. And there was one dog, the trainer came over, quickly put two prong collars on the dog and jerked back, and the dog took a chunk out of his arm. So right, so the police came out and they wanted to euthanize the dog. But in court, I said, if a stranger walked into our house and did something like that to us, I would bite them, right? I mean, you're just, oh my gosh, what's happening here? I'm trying to defend myself the best that I can. So I always feel like dogs are held to these ridiculous standards that we as humans would fail at ourselves over and over. And it's just so unfair. And people, when they hire someone, they really have to be so careful about who they're inviting into their home. And
Yeah,
some of the things that trainers say that I've heard from my clients just really blow me out of the water. Some things are just made up and they're horrendous, and it's crazy. It's crazy.
yeah. It's, I don't know. It's like, so what, like, how do you actually, that reminds me, I had a conversation with somebody once, and I think she just sort of finished like a dog training qualification,
Mm,
and she'd been told by people in her town where she lives, like, nope, girl, that ain't gonna work, because she said, well, there's all the trainers here are balanced trainers, right?
ugh.
And they weren't gonna accept her. Right. And I'm like, well, at least you can speak to all the women who don't want to go to these blogs, right?
Right,
Do
right,
you think it's a gender thing? I mean, I've had men on the show who are totally kindness first, so I'm not saying,
right, right,
but
right.
there
There's a lot
seems
of
to be a bit of a
very,
divide.
very kind men,
Mm,
but there are, I can tell you just in my area, um, there are many, many more men who teach that you have to be a force with your dog than women.
mm. Because it often
It's
feels to me like men look for control and women look for connection,
right, right. It's like
so,
we're a different species, and I think you're
mm,
right. I think there is something there, and luckily we have the men who are
yeah,
are not like that, and then we have some women that are Unfortunately, looking
Yeah.
for that obedience. I don't even like the word.
I don't like it either.
I
It's like you
hate,
wouldn't want it for your children, right?
you would not. And again, when I go to a home and someone will say, well, I've been working on the come command. And the first thing I always say is, you know, how about we talk about a recall cue?
Mm.
And doesn't that sound so much better? Because nobody wants to be bossed around, ordered around, you know. We want a relationship. We want a loving, caring relationship. And truly, nobody can move forward in a relationship unless there's trust and love. We just can't. People who say, well, look at my dog is so obedient and perfect in every situation. But when I look at this dog and the head's low and the tail's low and the eyes are dull, it breaks my heart.
Yeah. And I mean, I remember seeing one in Granada where I used to live, this guy, like, well, he basically took a dog trainer course and it was literally, dog whisperer mini me kind of Spanish version,
Yes, yes.
and so you could tell, I mean, you just like hear the and kicks and like, yeah, you kind of know where they're
Oh,
going,
it's horrible.
and he adopted a Mali, you know,
Mm.
traumatized, like
Mm.
the poor dog was like, and he would not, he says, oh, he gets really anxious when there's like a lot of people. And then he says, oh, yeah, I trained that out. Like, yep, that's sorted. He basically went where there was like a, Easter procession where there's like people and people. Like, he basically flooded that dog. He went
It's
there
it's
and took
it
him in.
kills
And
us.
initially he was like, whatever. And then you could see, like, I saw him afterwards and he was literally like, he'd just given up on life, and
Yes,
he would
and it's
like, look
just
how nice
horrible.
and calm he is, right? And
It's
it's like,
horrible.
makes me want to, yeah, it's
I,
like,
uh, I took my applied animal behavior classes through it's University of Washington, and my professors were just like amazing. It was just amazing. But one of my classmates is a fabulous lady who works with cane corsos. And she said that never, ever, ever would she use anything that was intimidating or painful. But, since she works with those dogs, she sees that all the time, that um, it seems to be so many people feel like the bigger the dog, the more you have to enforce who's large and in charge. And it doesn't matter the size, it doesn't matter the breed. Dogs are so social, and we are, and everybody's just looking for that connection. There's
yeah,
Fitzy trying to
so
get
cute.
get himself famous.
Very cute. Have you got an example where somebody came to you kind of starting out, sort of argue, like, have you seen people change their mind?
Oh yes. Yeah, I mean I've cried with people. Um I feel like many people use these balance trainers and then it's not working. Some people, they say their dog's aggressive, which, I don't even really like that word, but I know people use it to explain what's going on sometimes. But so they call in this person who has them shocking and jerking a prong collar, and things are getting worse. So we have one or the other. We have either the dog that gives up and shuts down and says, this is just my life. There's nothing I can do or say. When I'm saying I'm uncomfortable, nobody's listening. Or there's the dog that says, what in the world? This is not okay. You, other dog, cause me pain. You, little boy, cause me pain. And these dogs, I have to get you before you get me, right? It's terrible,
Yep,
but we
makes
can
sense.
understand
Mm.
it. So then these people will call me and say, I heard about you. I worked with this person who told me to do this, this, and this, but it seems as though it's getting worse. And I say, of course it is. And I'm sorry, but we're going to have fight or flight here. And I'll explain it all to you. And then I explain it all. And, again, many times people are just crying, and I hug them and I cry too because I feel so bad about what the dog has endured, in the name of training. And I really have to believe that people, you know, you wouldn't you wouldn't hire the doctor that doesn't take his boards every 2 years. Why is that? Because things change,
Mm.
right? If you're still cutting off people's legs because you didn't know that penicillin was invented, which stops an infection, well, I don't want to hire you,
Yeah,
right?
for
So
sure.
there's these trainers that are pushing things that once was thought to be the only way. Even like when the clickers came out, um, it was one of the first times where people said, "Oh, you can work with a dog in a way that's not hurting them or doing anything negative." I like to just use the word yes because I like that personal connection, and I want the dog to hear that I'm happy, you know. But it's all about connection. It's all about relationship, and that's got to be the most important thing to be able to have the companion that you want because you want a dog that you can bring places,
Yeah.
but the dog to go places has to feel safe with you. And then there's some dogs like him, he's just never going to be comfortable going places, and that's okay. Could I put a shock collar on him and say, you better go
Oh,
here? Sure, but how horrible would that be? So he trusts me. Huh. And his world is small, but it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And then I have my other girl, she's somewhere, I don't know where she went, and she loves to say hi to everybody. So you have to look at the dog in front of you,
yeah.
and do what's right for the dog. You can't fix a dog into to make them into someone they're not, right?
Yeah.
Some of us are introverts, some of us are extroverts, and if my husband doesn't want to go to the party down the street, well, then I'm going to say, okay, babe, I'll go down and I'll be back in a few hours because he's
Yeah.
more of an introvert.
Yeah, I mean, it makes so much sense, and I think it's this letting go of looking at the dog like a toy or a tool, or like it's. I mean, that's like in
Right.
Spain. That's really it's
Right.
this traditional like, oh, the dog needs to serve, like it's for protection, or it's a toy for the kids, and so it's that the dog needs to, like, buy a plush toy, like,
Right.
just
Right.
because if you look at the dog as another soul, another being who is more comfortable
And
one
there
thing
you
or
are.
another, who has trauma and whatever, and has their life, and is just looking for that connection. Like, you will never do these things, but if you think it's like, oh, well, he's gotten too big now, and whatever, or like he's not, I don't know, you hear them when it's like, well, yeah, but if I'm police, oh, I've seen police dogs, right? When like the explosion detective like dogs kind of. So I know somebody who's
Sure,
like working
sure.
with that. So he's a handler, and I'm like, don't really know anything about, like, so they basically, oh, okay, here the dog comes trained, and then they go out, and if somebody comes, or there's a concert, so they go and make sure there's no explosives somewhere, right? I saw where these dogs live in the meantime. It's horrific.
Horrible.
Like, in
Oh,
these kind of concrete cells,
oh,
hysterical in there, dark, no window. It's literally, and I think they actually do
oh,
that on
that's
purpose. It's like
horrible.
sort of to almost create like a Stockholm syndrome, so it's like that's why
Yes.
they like to work, because it's the only time they get out of their shithole,
Oh, it's
and
terrible.
then the handlers are told they mustn't be too nice to these dogs, because then they wouldn't be good at working.
They
You
wouldn't be
know,
tough enough.
they wouldn't, like, they won't do their work if they're too kind of, if you have too much
Yeah.
of a, like, you're not allowed to be nice to the dog. And it's just like, literally, they treat them like an old tool that you kind of
It's,
don't
you know
bother
what it
to.
is,
Yeah,
Anka? It's slavery,
yeah, totally.
right?
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. It was horrific. I never imagined that like professionals, that they would treat the dogs like that. It's like,
And when you see it,
Jesus.
you can't go back, and it really hurts your heart.
Yeah. And you think, well, and then you you expect them to save your butt, It's like,
Yeah, I
yeah.
know. I
It's
know.
so tell me about the book that's coming up, because I know I'm going to have you back when the book's out. So
So
give us
it's
a
a
little bit
book
of a hint of where this is going.
that I've been working on for a long time here and there, and I don't know why, I just haven't, put it all together. But it's basically the story of how I do things with people that I meet in the world and their dogs, but it's also the story of Fitzy and his sister. And I had mentioned to you in another conversation that they were born to a stray mom who was emaciated and very skittish. And him and his sister were a third of the size of the other pups. And their immune system had turned on itself in utero because they were so malnourished.
Wow.
So unfortunately, we lost her at age 6 because her liver shut down. And his liver isn't great, but it's better than hers. So he's still here at 10 and a half.
Yeah, he is.
And
And knows how to look pretty in the background.
he knows how to look pretty. He's very handsome, isn't he? He
He's
loves
very
you. How
adorable,
handsome he
very
is.
cute.
So he's my good boy. Yeah.
Oh. So where can people go and find out about you, connect with you, get more of you?
You can find me on my website, which is Debbie's the number 4 dogs. I'm also on Facebook. You could find me in the Phoenix Advocacy Center. You can find me in the Pet Professional Guild. You can find me a lot of places where they care about the welfare of dogs.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank
much. You
you
have
so
such a
much.
calm, lovely presence. I just really
Oh,
love
I
hanging out with
appreciate
you.
that. Oh, we'll hang out more after this. Well, goodbye,
Absolutely.
everybody. Anka and I are going to
See
go
you later,
back.
guys. So
Right, right. Sounds
thanks so
good.
much.
Thanks so much too. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review so other dog lovers can find the show. If you haven't already, head over to soultouchedbydogs.com and sign up for weekly doggy cuteness, tips, recommendations, and personal stories to warm your dog-loving heart. And if you know a awesome human you think I should interview, I'd love an introduction. Email me at Anke, that's ANKE, @soultouchedbydogs.com.